On November 6th of 2019, a game started circulating the web called NoPlayersOnline. Made by a small team of developers, it was praised by players for its use of simple but effective horror techniques, yet some felt the game was lacking something. I myself played it, and the common consensus was that the game was extremely short, even for a horror experience. Little did I know that a small story and an ARG would quickly develop around this short indie game that would catapult itself even further into my mind by asking a simple question. How do we really grieve over a lost loved one? My first experience with this game was the feeling of dread. I was presented with this file with no context whatsoever and was told to just play it. I didn't even know it was a horror game at the time. I booted up the game and quickly realized that I was alone, and loneliness in a first-person shooter has never been so prominent. The goal is to capture 3 flags, so I kept racing back and forth with the flags until I noticed something. Strange shadows kept appearing and things in the map kept changing. After the second flag, you began to realize you weren't alone in the game. You become hunted, almost taunted by some kind of spirit. It isn't until you're about to pull the final flag into your base that you get another person joining in. The developer of the game tells you not to capture the last flag because it will close the game servers. He claims he brought back his dead wife by using the game as a host for her spirit, and his work hasn't progressed far enough for him to be able to bring her back to the world of the living. Now, immediately, something about this plot struck me as odd. I mean, it's obvious that this is something you'd probably read in some sort of 15-year-old's creepypasta online. But if you choose to overlook the simple plot, and boy am I glad I did, I feel like there's actually a hint of something else in this story. You are given 2 choices at this point. You can either capture the flag and shut the servers down, or leave the server and exit the game. But there is a hidden third option. If you go back into the server after leaving, you'll be granted a second playthrough. Although if you choose to take the flag and shut down the servers, you can restart them by using the Konami code thanks to the first developer log on the game's itch.io page. Nothing seems different until John appears again. This time, he recognizes you and asks why you won't leave him alone. It is then that John joins into the game as the sprite of some kind of floating eye. If you shoot the eye with your gun, you see this. Now I know it's a little hard to see, but the person in the video seems to be drawing arrows of some sort. The code shows up as up, 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 down, down, enter. After you enter that, a text file shows up on your desktop with a code, but we'll come back to that later. On November 11th, the developers released another log on their itch.io page called Complete Save File. The quote-unquote save file you can get has a file extension that if you change it into an image format, you get this. And if you brighten it up, you also get this date in the bottom left corner. It's on this date, November 15th, that the itch.io page was updated with yet another devlog. This time, it was about a multiplayer fix, and it contained an email address you can contact. If you do, you get an auto-reply from a man named John Mullard, who states he's out for personal grievances. He links you to his personal page, which contains the image from the save file. On this page, You can also download a game called I. This game is just a walking simulator where you're walking your dog and you seem to try to be catching up to it. The symbolism seems heavy to me in this game for some reason, and you feel unnerved as you come across what looks like an abandoned house and eventually a dock. The next video shows what appears to be someone lurking around the woods and even under an underpass after dark. The words on screen are actually from a song called Blue and Sentimental by the Count Basie Orchestra. It's also been performed by such stars as Ella Fitzgerald and Tony Bennett, but for this situation it doesn't seem to matter who's singing it. The lyrics are missing one word specifically though, and Googling it gives you the word haunt. Now going back to our serverless screen, if you type out the word haunt, you get access to the game's sound test menu. Now remember that code from the log file on our desktop from earlier? Type that in, and a lovely scream greets you. The message on the bottom left tells you that you've removed collision from a wall in the middle of the map on each server. Jumping down brings you to the dungeon. Littered with graffiti and dim screens, a computer sits in the middle, and you need another code, which this time is from the most bizarre location. One detail I noticed when I started the game was that whenever you shoot your gun, it was never consistent. Sometimes you get 9 shots, sometimes you only get 1. Before you have to reload, of course. This was a key detail in solving our final puzzles. A user named, I'm sorry, I can't even try to pronounce this, discovered that if you shoot all your rounds and reload for a while, your shots actually spell out a phone number. 324-684-17549. Calling the number, unfortunately now, leads you to nowhere, but the message we needed was uploaded to the game's associated Bandcamp page. This user solved the beeps to distinguish this message.
Something has gone wrong. Galen Village, tranquil, quiet. Hell of a large hand.
By using the keyword for dog, they managed to break it down this way. Longest word, last letter, is what the hint says. So in between the breaks we have the following. Something has gone wrong, so we highlight G because it is the last letter of the longest word. Doing the same for the others, we get the letters GLE. Now that we have those, we use an A1Z26 cipher to get the answer. A1Z26 ciphers have a number corresponding with the letters placed in the alphabet. So, for example, A is 1, B is 2, and so on. So following the cipher, G would be 7, L would be 12, and E would be 5. Adding them all together, you get 26. Here, a hint from the Morse code message plays a factor, minus keyword. So we take our total of 26 and subtract it from each letter's corresponding number. So we take 26 minus 7, 26 minus 12, and 26 minus 5 to get our final code. 19, 14, 21. Entering the code, you walk into the transfer pod, touch the flag, and fade back into the server list. You notice all the servers are full before you click it and the credits roll. So I know that was a lot, so there's gotta be a huge payoff, right? They wouldn't make you go through all of it just for no reason. Well, let's talk more about it. Let's push aside the simple, almost parody-like plot device for a minute. I think it's evident that this story focuses heavily on loss, but the feeling I got from it was one of heavy despair and dwindling hope. Throughout the iGame on John Mullard's page, you're supposed to be walking a dog, but you never catch up to it. This could mean one of two things, in my opinion. This could be an event that took place either during the time of his wife's death or after. Followers of the game, known as the NoPlayersOnline Discord group, think of the timeline going as something a little like this. March 20th, 1975. The lyric video we found in the iGame was dated. The footage of our MS boss gameplay is also recorded, which is what the setting of the entire game is. March 31st, 1975. Some event occurred, but we don't know necessarily. This is the beginning of John's hiatus for personal grievances. Personally, I think this is around the time that either John's wife died or potentially became sick, if at all. April 5th, 1975. Metadata from the save file was turned into a PNG file at 1:56 a.m. June 2nd, 1975. John came back from his personal grievances and ended his hiatus. December 12th of 1987. The log file was created, the one that we found on our desktop. Now, stepping to the side of all the evidence that the NoPlayersOnline guys and gals had put together, my theory is that John's wife had potentially drowned in some way in the iGame. You walk down the dock and abruptly when you reach the water, and the videotape you find actually showcases a similar one to the one in the game. It is absolutely possible she passed away from another cause, but it just seems like the game is leading me in that direction. The game doesn't really give us too much on if she was murdered or if she died of natural causes, and it leaves it up to a lot of speculation. What it does give us, however, is motivation for the game's existence. John's grief is so apparent throughout this entire journey. He can't cope with the idea of losing his wife, so he traps her into a game. Throughout the game, we see graffiti saying he's sorry and telling her it's not forever. He's worked on this game supposedly for 11 years since her death, and he can't seem to let her go. Losing a loved one is one of the hardest things human beings have to endure, and some people can't move past the emotional ties to someone they once had. The fear of the unknown and uncertainty of the world scares them more so with their partner or friend gone to the other side. But it's through acceptance and living on with those memories that we grow and learn through these experiences. The first ending shows that sometimes the best thing you could do is let go, end things on an easy note, and just move on with your life. The true ending, however, shows us that John may do anything necessary to still bring her back, even so much as sacrificing other people, including our player. Being consumed in grief can literally bring people down with you, and most of the 5 stages of grief are even shown here in a way. Denial is kind of shown through the tapes as he keeps mentioning how she haunts him and how he never seems to let go of this idea that she is here. Anger shows when the player returns into the server the second time, where he snaps at them for coming back, trying to ruin his life. Bargaining shows up when he keeps using technology to bring her back, trading away years of his life to save her, and even at one point, taking the player's own soul in exchange for hers. Depression, well, that's kind of evident throughout the entire game. It shows up in the graffiti in the dungeon room, and the lyric tape where he quotes a song about being blue and sentimental. It shows in his desperation to keep her memory alive, swearing she's there. And now that he's at stage 4, there's only one more stage to get to. Only when he reaches stage 5 of acceptance will he truly move on from this hell that he perceives to live in. Just because someone has moved on into the afterlife doesn't mean that our memories with them are any less special, or our love for them has faded away in any shape or form. Honor them and those you love by celebrating their life and the memories you created with them. I want to thank you all for watching today's video, and I apologize if things ended on a sour note. But I really felt something from this small game, and it kept me up at night thinking about this. And I like games like these that give me a conversation piece and make me think a lot about these things. And even if I'm just speculating and just trying to put together things that aren't really there, it's fun for me to kind of just theorize. I apologize for the hiatus as well. I was not planning on it, but my birthday kind of happened and kind of screwed up the recording schedule, so hopefully you guys can forgive me, and the next episode will be out in 2 weeks, I promise. I want to thank you guys very much for watching. Remember that you are loved, and have a good night.